You guys just like you keep coming around. I just keep hearing about you guys.
You guys got some fantastic golf, so I'm gonna have to get a round or two in out there.
I love the game. I had a passion to play the game, not only football, but I love the game of golf and what it lends to a person.
Let's take this thing to the moon, make the drop well known, better than it's ever been before.
Marion is a place where I just love that golf course.
So listen, I'm a big New Jersey golf guy. You're very kind, Mike. It's a pleasure to be on just a couple of Jersey boys here talking about something we love. All the best. I really enjoyed it.
This is the Drop Podcast where we talk golfing in the Garden State. I'm Mike Poro. Welcome back, Drop Pod people. Man, for us golf analytics, us golf nerds, us golfers who just frankly care about the numbers, today is your day. Our guest is master fitter at True Spec Golf, located right there at Metedeconk National, Michael Buell. Michael and I go through my entire day there at Metedeconk, getting fit for everything from drivers to fairway woods to irons to wedges. He breaks down all the data as to why each golf club, each shaft, all makes sense for my swing. He also recommends the why in terms of getting fit and getting it done right, and why doing it one time, paying a little more, makes the most sense. So for you guys that just frankly love numbers like I do, today is your day. Sit back and relax and enjoy today's interview. Think about your caddy on the course. Their job is to take decisions and stress off your shoulders so you can focus on the shot in front of you. For the Drop Podcast, that's where Thrive comes in, your trusted partner in technology outsourcing. Just like a great caddy, Thrive knows the course ahead. They lift the burden of IT off your shoulders so you can stay locked in on what matters most, running your business. The truth is, 1/3 of businesses will unknowingly hand over sensitive data to thieves this year. And when it happens, it's not just files at risk. It's your customers' trust, your bank accounts, even the very foundation of your company. The damage can be catastrophic, and you often won't realize it until the ransom demand is sitting in your inbox. That's why your business needs Thrive. At The Drop, we rely on their managed security services to proactively protect our network, monitor threats around the clock, and give us the confidence to focus on our work. Because when it comes to cybersecurity, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Get your no obligation security recommendations and consultation today at thrivenextgen.com/the drop. That's thrivenextgen.com/the drop. All right, so today's guest on the Drop Podcast is master fitter at True Spec Golf, Michael Buell. Mike, thanks so much for coming on today's show.
Thank you, Mike.
Listen, I think there's a lot to dive in with someone like you, because I think a lot of guys like me, when you're diving deep into analytics and numbers, we feel like we know them. But after going through a full fitting with you, I don't know the numbers. And I feel like after doing what I did with you, I became a lot smarter in some aspects, maybe not to your level, but I'm understanding numbers a little better. But before I even get into what you and I did going through the entire process, I want you to educate the audience a little bit on your background, how you got into the game of golf, what made you decide to want to make this a specific career in the game of golf. Give us a little bit of a background on you.
So, a little different than basically anyone else that True Spec hires. Typically, I would say that we have some sort of playing experience, or the mini tours or collegiately. Um, I've just always worked in sports. My first job was with the Sixers. We were selling season tickets back in the Little and Trust process days, selling a 9-win team. So did that for 2 years. And then about 6-7 years after that, I was at USC athletic department, like Southern Cal, the real SC, not South Carolina. Um, and for there, I worked for in conjunction with football and the Trojan Athletic Fund, and that's essentially the donation component of every big time college football program, whether it's Penn State, Ohio State, SC, Notre Dame. Your yard line that you sit in corresponds with a mandatory donation to the athletic department. So in a way, the guys who are, buying season tickets and donating to the athletic department at SC, the guys who are sitting near center court at a Sixers game, kind of the same guy who's at Matitacock. So it's kind of like, I mean, it's not kind of it's I've worked with the same guy, my whole professional career. Um, it's just that kind of work. It's a lot of smile and dial and 100 calls a day, and I just wanted something else. True Spec open location. Back at the time, I was in Southern California at our Beverly Hills studio. Became friends with the fitter there, and it just sort of fell into an opportunity. And 5, 6 years later, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy. And I think explain to the people the idea of how you get into the fitting process, because I got to hear probably 6, 7 years worth of your education today and understanding the ins and outs of a lot of it. But like, where does that process even begin, or where does the interest start? Like, what decides, hey, listen, I'm going to go fit the everyday person who just loves the game of golf?
Yeah, I didn't really know this was a job until I found out it was a thing. That's the honest truth. And then to
Uh
figure
huh.
out, like, it's a pretty fun way to make a living. It's not real work. It's not. I mean, I work at Matitacock. It's cool. It is cool. Um, I wish I had a better answer. It
Yeah.
just fell into an opportunity. Performed well. I was at a Beverly Hills studio. Had the opportunity to. I didn't know where we were going to open up. At the time, we had nothing between New York City and Charlotte. So, my wife's from South Jersey, so we knew that the Mid Atlantic, somewhere in the Mid Atlantic, we were good with, whether it be the mainline, DC ish area, or New Jersey. So, sort of committed to moving out to the Mid Atlantic somewhere and end up being Matita. Love it.
Wow, it's a home run if you ask me. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's been harped on many times on this show. If it's not the best practice facility in the country, it's damn near top three by no any stretch of the imagination because of everything got going on there.
Yeah.
It's definitely a special, special spot. But let's get into the fitting process itself, because
Hmm.
I think when you and I started these conversations, the idea of staying open to everything was important for a guy like me. And anybody that knows me knows that I am a Titleist guy through and through, whether it's the actual golf bag to, the wedges, the putter, the driver, the irons, you name it, the golf ball. Like, I was always so committed to it. And I think one of the things that you and I spoke a lot about early on is just being open. Let's be open to what the numbers say and finding the right product. And I think it kind of showed early on when I got in there and you started to see some of the numbers. What did you realize from your profession that you're like, you know what? These Titleist irons that you may love just aren't right for you.
I mean, before I even fit, when we had this first conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago, you were just talking about your ball flight. I don't. It could have been Tommy Armour. It could have been Titleist. It could put in whatever. It didn't sound like a good matchup. I mean, you play. I think you said today you play around somewhere around a 2.3 ish, 2.5 handicap. Like, it didn't make sense that you had the miss you're explaining. It wasn't adding up. Something wasn't adding up. Um, so yeah, that's to answer your question. I knew something didn't sound right.
And then
Um,
obviously, so I get there today and I start banging that 6 iron around with the current Titleist T200s and I have in my bag. What stood out really to a guy like you knowing
I
numbers?
think the first shot you hit, you said, "I don't think I can hit any better," right?
Yeah, I think I did. I probably did say it's a typical Mike
And
Pereira line.
I kind of hated what happened. You know, like,
That's a sad thing to hear when I feel like I flushed the damn golf
I mean,
ball.
no, it wasn't
And the
your
guy
fault.
that's fitting me
It was the
says
guy
it's
before
not
you.
good.
Like, the guy before you's problem, or you get a different swing. But like, I see you. I'm looking at your number here, right? You probably hit 5 or 6 balls, and you did the same thing. I mean, you're a good player, so like, yeah, it wasn't anything I took out, and you were spinning at 36, launch at 18, covering 185. And I think I told you, like, yeah, like you hit it 185, it's kind of a fugazi number. You know, it doesn't exist in an applicable world. You know, especially the kind of spots where you like to play.
Yeah.
You know, you can't
And
spin at 3,600 RPMs and hold. I mean, if I'm thinking about number 2 at Matita Conk, 195 yards uphill. What do you use? A 5-iron when you play here from the member tees?
yeah, so
What do you
number
use?
two.
So
Number
down
two.
down the hill one, you get the short par 3,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a par 3 uphill. Usually play somewhere around the mid 190s.
Yeah, I got to be
It,
hitting 5-iron, five,
but
six
yeah,
iron,
and
probably.
it's uphill. It's like, how do you possibly hold anything?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I bet you're in that bunker front left, or you're like skip it through the green. But yeah,
I think that's something that you can educate the audience on because obviously they hear the number, and I think one of the things that the average golfer or the amateur golfer hears and cares the most about is the carry and the total distance because that's what we all fall in love with is the total
yeah,
yardage. And I think when people hear you say I hit the 6-iron 185, they're like, "Holy hell, that's phenomenal." Explain to the audience from your fitting perspective
yeah.
why the spin rate affects the number.
Why the spin rate affects total distance?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
why in
Well,
a
your
sense
ball
it
was
was
just
a fugazi
extremely.
number.
Yeah, it was extremely aerodynamic. I mean, you legitimately hit it 185. So in that way, it's not fugazi, but you
Right.
legitimately hit it 185. So that's real, but it wasn't playable, like at all. Your angle of descent was, I think, near 41-ish degrees, and we like between 43 and 50, and that's in terms of angle of descent. And the closer you are to 43, now, I think we touched on an old Duffner interview where he's like, on an 8-iron, I want to spin an 8K and 7K. Like, yeah, sure, at that speed, go for it, but not at this level. Even at the high end at this level, that's just it's too much spin for most people.
Right.
And I would take that comment all the way up, like as high as the game is played. I think that's probably too much spin. Something probably could be changed there. But yeah, you were spinning at 36, and it was coming in at 41 degrees. And then you said you liked it, or that was as good as you could hit it. I was like, all right, cool, game on. Like, you know,
And and explain that when you see those numbers and you're like, all right, well, we're gonna fix this quickly because we're gonna find a way for you to hit it just as far, but it's gonna be higher. It's gonna
yeah,
have a better descent. It's gonna spin more. Explain to the audience why that matters in terms of like landing on the green or what I would be doing is terms you and I
yeah.
talked
You
about.
know,
It's like
I think you
ricocheting.
said that like any protected pin is a problem, and if the pin is even on the right side of the, it's a problem. I mean, I would love to hear what you do when the sort of green complex goes that way and it goes to the right. I don't know which way I pointed that way, but I meant to point to the right.
Yeah, no, I get you. I
you
got
know,
it. Yeah.
I don't know what you do. I think you're kind of SOL.
Oh, big time.
The way
Up.
so if it's back left, green light for you, green light. But should it not be, you're in trouble. Um, I'm gonna keep on picking on holes at Matita because we both are super familiar with the property. Um, but we just talked about 2, 3's at par 5, and the green kind of goes diagonal that way, which is the complete opposite side that you need to have any chance of stopping the ball. I bet you end up in that punch bowl behind the green a lot.
Golfers, after 6 years of extensive construction and renovation, all 3 Essex County golf courses are officially open and ready for your best shot. More than $30 million has been invested in restoring 3 classic Golden Age designs. Francis Burn Golf Course, a 1928 championship layout by Charles Banks and Seth Rayner, delivers a true test for skilled players. Hendricks Field, another standout 1929 Charles Banks design, brings classic strategy back to life. And Weequahic Golf Course, the oldest public track in New Jersey, originally opened in 1914, has been fully renovated, offering a true throwback Golden Age architecture experience. Today, all 3 feature pristine conditions GPS-equipped luxury carts, and an elevated overall experience that keeps golfers coming back. Tee times are also easier than ever through their new partnership with Notify. Visit the Essex County website, set your preferred days and times, and let them book your next round. Visit Essex County Golf Courses today. You know what I do is I now that I'm starting to recollect a lot about Matita. The second hole, I think I hit a hybrid and I hit it over the green because I didn't have the real distance between a hybrid and a 5-iron. So I remember
Yeah.
I hit it actually over the green. And then on the third hole, the par 5, I actually have to play the pin when I played it was about middle right. And I think I hit it to about 50, 60 feet left just because that pin's inaccessible
And
for
you
me
don't
to
have
have.
50 feet to work with even on that green. So you were behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yep.
still
Big
mow
time.
tight. It might as well be an extension of the green. It's
Right.
fairway length. And
Yep.
then you have to either chip it into the hill to kill it or play some sort of hero shot. But unless you're the Phil Mickelson, or good luck.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think that's what's important for everybody to realize is like I know the number ultimately is so important to everybody in terms of distance. But I think that's one of the things that I left there from the fitting itself and was like, okay, it's not always about the number. Like there's so many more things that go into it. So like what would you say to the average guy that he was coming in and getting fit with you? Like, how do you get that person to not be so fixated on distance?
indoors, like it was today, it's a lot harder. It is a lot harder. Like you looked up and before the ball landed, you were checking the quad out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you weren't obsessed with it. Like for some guys, I put a towel over the quad. You know, I don't let you
Wow.
look at it. Like I put a towel over the quad. If someone is like just cannot control themselves and they keep looking at the numbers, I'll put a towel over the numbers over that little display, and you won't see it. And then when the doors open, we're looking at ball flight anyway.
Yeah.
So, I sort of don't. I don't allow that to happen for a guy to be obsessed with the numbers. Like, let me do that. Just be an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You be an athlete, and then I'll worry about the rest. But if you're chasing a number and you're trying to do two things, you don't have enough swings in the body to give me two versions of you.
Right.
So I just, yeah. So I guess to answer the question, I won't let it be a problem.
Yeah. No,
Because if
and
it
I
doesn't
think
become a problem, I just throw a towel over the screen and then, all right, well, that's dealt with.
yeah, no, and I like the idea of when you said it even multiple times in the fitting is like just go be an athlete. Like go swing your swing and swing it. And I think, we're gonna find something that matches it. And I think going through that process, let's talk from an irons perspective,
Yeah.
like really finding the right club head and how you built it that way. And I kind of thought that was a really interesting thing because I felt like at times I was trying to hit the fast forward button on you, and you're like, "Oh, slow down. Let's focus on this aspect." Talk about how you build things out for when guys come to see you, or at least educate people on the proper
Yeah. So
way.
I think we talked about, I think briefly, and we're going to get away from the question, but maybe back into it. We talked about forgiveness, and I talked about how I didn't like how forgiveness is understood for the most part. And I think it fits nicely in a marketing pitch and on a deck and on the back of a, you know, artwork display at Golf Galaxy. But forgiveness, I think, should be understood as, does it benefit you? We talked about Rory's interview. Where were they at last week? Pebble, when he went from Blades, or no? Yeah, no, the CB.
Dubai, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Dubai. Was it Dubai? Yeah, clearly watched a lot of golf. Don't even know what continent we're playing on right now. No, I love Riviera. Anywho, no, he went to the CBs for quote unquote forgiveness, and it just, I think he said that club he felt like was a little, it just, I don't want to misquote him, but I think he said this, he felt the CBs didn't turn over as much as his blades, which makes sense because the perimeter weighting is there to limit that. And for a guy that plays at that guy's level, like you kind of want all the volatility in the world because with that kind of God given talent, they can control it. So to that, I would say like that's a perfect example of forgiveness as it's understood didn't benefit Rory. Now, that's not to say like I want you to apply the same answer to yourself, but the same vein of like, did it benefit you? If it didn't benefit you, it's not forgiving. You know?
Yeah. No, I get it. And I think when you start when someone like kind of walks in there, I think the idea is like, you're so accustomed to just grabbing different things, but the idea that you started where we did, explain why you start there and kind of work
Yeah.
backwards.
Okay. So like at a sub 4 or 5 handicap, there's not many guys playing at Players Distance Club, which is where you're in right now, or were in
Right.
as of 12 hours ago.
Right.
Um, and so the ball just was coming out too hot, too low, and so you had a what you thought was a 27-degree club. We measured it, and it was actually a degree strong, or there was accidental, whatever. It was a degree strong. It's 26 degrees. No matter what, like I got to get that ball up. And the best way you can do that is give your player a weaker head. It's not like you miss it all that much. I mean, again, you play to a less than your 2 point whatever. Yeah, you miss it, but you don't miss it.
Hmm.
So it sort of gave me the freedom to like pick any loft. Some heads really didn't make sense just off pattern recognition. Did we hit the ZX7 today? I think we did.
I felt like we hit every club that you possibly had in there. I felt like
You only hit like 5 or 6 irons, but I don't like, and that was a little more than I would say typical.
right.
I've really only tried 4 or 5. Like, this was more like of a showcase than, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So you probably
100%.
hit a few more heads and a few more combinations that I would have allowed in a typical fitting.
Hmm.
So I with your club being a degree strong than standard at that club at 26 degrees, I just knew I needed more static loft at some point. So I started there, and I think the first club, because you said I want to play Titleist, I was like, all right, cool, I'll entertain that. He did the T150, and that was a degree, 2 degrees weaker than where you're at. And we tested things at 28 and 29 degrees for the most part. I don't even think we touched 27, except
I
for
don't
the
think we did either.
250. No, the
You're right.
250 we did, and
Right,
that
right,
wasn't any
true.
better. Um, so yeah, that's why I started there. One, you're a good player, so we don't need to have a whole big body of a club. And then I needed to be a weak club anyway. So we just started. I pulled about 5 or 6 clubs between right around 28 to 29 degrees.
Yeah, and I think the idea of kind of settling, which is kind of for some people that don't know, is like breaking news that when we find the ping blueprint S's, I believe that's what we ended up settling on, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like, which is kind of breaking news and shocking to a lot of people that they're going to hear Mike Porras playing ping irons. But I think one of the things that we found in there is I was able to hit the ball so much higher than I felt like I've ever seen the ball go.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things either was you really weren't sacrificing distance. And
You
if
lost
I'm
four
able
yards.
right, and that's nothing, at least in my opinion. Maybe to other people, maybe something, but like 4 yards is nothing.
It's
So
a
the
third
fact
of a
that I'm
club. Yeah.
yes, the fact that I'm not losing anything while gaining so many more positives, height, descent, it just like it just made so much more sense.
Yeah.
And what from your side were you able to look at that club, that shaft, and say, okay, we got a perfect match
So
here.
there's nothing like you kind of asked like, what are you thinking? I think like so on the head. I just knew that it had to be around that loft. It had to be between 20 and 29. So there's no sexy answer like, oh, I this no. I think anyone that says that tries to call this shot, like I think you just get in more trouble than it's worth. So you just saw a series of heads in that loft. Some heads go higher than others for various reasons. The blueprint, in my opinion, goes a little higher than others. The 770 goes a little higher than others. The ZX7 goes a little lower than others. Um, and those aren't absolutes either. That's just seeing these heads fitting, 300-400 guys a year, last 6-ish years. Like, you just start to like have a Rolodex of information to go to, and where that benefits you is that we only took 110 swings a day.
I mean, I can't
Yeah.
lie. I felt like a lot more than 110. These hands are beat up, and I felt like,
Good.
oh my
Take that,
goodness.
Bill.
Yeah, I
um,
got blisters galore.
no. Yeah. You didn't hit more than 120 shots because I looked at the shot clock or the shot counter at the end. Um,
Interesting.
and I I do think that's where experience comes into play because when I see something I don't like, I just pull it.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, which we
Because
did multiple times today. You're like, nope, done. I seen enough.
yeah,
Like whether it was 1 or 2 shots, you're like, all right, moving on.
yeah, never one, but two. If you do the same thing, the better you are, the quicker I can pull it.
Hmm.
If someone's has a hard time giving me something similar, then I have to let it play out,
Hmm.
and that is what it is.
Right.
But I think one of the things we also found that your labels had rubbed off wherever it had the weight and the flex, or they didn't have it printed. One of the two, forget. But it was clearly soft. When we measured it in the CPMs, it was soft. You thought it was a KBS 4100 just off of memory. And the cool thing is, you swung a shaft that was at least 10-ish, 12-ish grams heavier, faster later in the fit than you did yours at the onset after you warmed up. So to me, there is something that your body or brain or both didn't agree with whatever you're swinging. Probably because you couldn't feel where the head was.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the interesting thing about going through all those, the different shafts is like we were talking about one word here, harshness, tighter. Does it feel like this? What made the shaft that we settled on in the irons
Yeah.
kind of like hit the, it's like ding ding ding, that's the winner.
So yeah. Your face to path got a little too closed. Um,
And okay, so now stop real quick there.
yeah.
Explain that to the audience what you mean by that point specifically.
Okay, so you were 3 point something degrees inside. Let's call it three for the sake of the math.
Okay.
You're 1 degree open. For most people, that's fine. But for most people, they aren't hitting at 3,600 RPMs and hitting it at 41 angle descent. So your face to path was 2 degrees closed to, which is fine, but based on other things, like it wasn't. It just wasn't a good matchup. So I needed something in which the head could be a little later on. I asked guys, what did you play in your past life? Because not many guys. I mean, this answer probably changed in 15 years as kids are playing like Little League golf or whatever youth golf is called. But I mean, for the guys that were fitting, that wasn't really a thing or as much of a thing as it is now. So like, I don't know if that same question or answer could be had in the future, but I asked like, what sports did you play growing up? And we talked baseball real quick. And you can think about being early on a pitch or late on a pitch. Like you can conceptualize that. And if I can explain it outside of golf, I think that helps you or the player just be more athletic. Because I think if we start talking about if it's so golf centric, I think it's like this panic or this tightness. I mean, that's just me,
No,
but
I think that helps. I think the baseball analogy is perfect because whether you want to say block or pull or yank or push, it's kind of all falls in that same umbrella. And when you're able to use an analogy from a different sport, I think
yeah,
it helps people just comprehend it a little easier.
yeah, if you're defining something within golf for golf, you're sort of defining the thing with the definition of itself. It's like that's not helpful or as
Right.
helpful as taking it outside an analogy outside of the environment. So yeah, you're 3 degrees inside, 1 degree open, and it just wasn't good enough. Um, so the shaft that I thought would work, which I'm not dogmatic, so it wasn't one of these things where like, I wasn't gonna open to look at anything else. I needed to see what doesn't work. By the way, when you get fit by us and when we do build your clubs, like there's a guarantee. So if I say X is gonna happen, it doesn't happen. We need you to come back. So in that way, I also need to see what doesn't work as well. I mean, you learn off of profits and losses. You don't just learn off of profits, right? So I needed to figure out what didn't work. But I thought that a shaft that sort of dissuaded the head from closing had a really good chance of being a winner. So that Acura relative to other shafts in that weight, which was at 115, stiff doesn't really matter because it's different for every OEM. Even within the Acura line, they have an Acura, yeah, several other lineups where like that stiff would be a little softer than others, but it's a little softer in the handle. You know, Acura's owned by True Temper, so in that Acura I Series green, it's like a rifle from the tip to about 2/3 up the shaft, and then it's a DG the other third. So yeah, True Temper owns Acura. It's got the DNA of a rifle and of the dynamic gold, and it's soft in the handles, gets progressively stiffer down through the shaft. I just pointed. That was stupid. Uh, but I thought it tends to perform well when guys are closing it too soon relative to the path.
Yeah. No,
And
and
then
listen, it worked real well. I mean, what I still am stunned thinking about that whole idea of higher, softer, distance is the same. I think just from a mental side, it's going to have to be like, all right, you're in pings and not Titleist. But I think if the result is what I think it's going to be, it's going to be irrelevant, really, for me.
yeah,
What's in the bag?
no, yeah, and there was a couple other things. I mean, your dynamic lie was 3 degrees down, and I that's more from like drooping. So as the head's coming in, it's sort of drooping that way. You know, if that's square, it's drooping down, and that's a
Mhm.
telltale sign of like you're overworking the shaft as a player. So that kind of tell me like, all right, get heavier, get stiffer, or a little bit of both. And then yeah, I felt like something softer in the hands that got a little stiffer down would be better than not. And then we tested it right after, same weight, the Oban CT, also 115, counterbalance a little different, but that's rather firm in the hand, and it's the 180. It's the exact opposite of the Acura. And you like the lightness, but like it started turning over. So then it
Yeah, big
was
time.
a it not a viable option for you. So then was selecting 4 or 5 other shafts that are similar to that how that Acura plays. We got a little heavier. We couldn't really go lighter. Um, Modus was close. It just ball speed was a little better in Acura, so the ball don't
Yeah.
lie.
And I think that was kind of the thing is once I hit those 6 irons as well as I did, I was like, all right, we kind of like, all right, we found the spot, and especially in an irons thing. And I think that as we progressed to the driver, I think this is probably the sexy club that a lot of people maybe come talk to you about because again, distance matters to a lot of people. And that's where you ask the same question. Are you open to seeing all types of drivers? And once I realized I'm going into ping irons, it was like, all right, yeah, listen, at this point, we're just going to play a numbers game here. We're going to
Yeah.
find what makes the most sense for your golf swing. And again, breaking news to a lot of people is we found the new TaylorMade QI 4D driver that was kind of like it wasn't really even close. I think, Mike, you can attest to
No.
that once we hit that the 2 times 3 times, it was like, all right, it's not even close, whether it's a solid shot or even a miss. It was like this is it.
No, I mean you hit your driver well. You did. And we talked about you're carrying 254 or on to 274. Your spin wasn't that much of a problem. It was 2,500. You had a standard deviation of 350 ish, which I know we talked about deviations. We'll skip bell curves right now. Um, but yeah, I actually did think that your GT2 at 11 degrees it wasn't as obvious as the Titleist, or not the Titleist. Yeah, it was the T200s.
Hmm.
And everything that we hit kind of stayed in that mid 250s. And the QI4D, for whatever reason, you were covering another 10 yards. And nothing else was in the 260s that often. We scraped it, but it wasn't 5 of 6 were in the 260s. It was 1 of 5. So
Hmm.
that's why it was just that was the head that was pretty quickly, figured
Yeah.
was the winner.
And
Um,
I mean, not only did I carry it longer, even the total number was damn near 15 yards, which is a big deal for like old guys like me that I always joke around that I'm just kind of bunting it out there. But to be able to carry it 265 for it to roll out 287, like that's a pretty big deal in terms of not just bunting the ball out there, because
yeah.
now you're able to be a little more aggressive on certain holes and say, okay, if the fairway bunker's 250 carry, and if I know if I hit it well, I'm hitting it well over that bunker.
Or okay, like, is it aggressive or is it just like the obvious play? For example, one, like I would argue that taking the driver on one at Matita, but you got to cover like 257 to cover the bunker. It's an afterthought if you hit it well. So like I would push back on saying like, it's the aggressive play. Like no, it's the smart play. We've now blown past trouble on some spots. There are going to be other spots that you play anywhere where now 287 brings in some other trouble, but whatever. But effectively, like, what does 10 yards mean to you if you're using it 13, 14 times around, like most typical golfers? You just shrank your scorecard by 130, 140 yards. So
Yeah.
you basically comboed your tees without comboing the tees.
Yeah. And I think to your point, what we talked about a lot in the fitting, it's not so much to your point right there, being aggressive. It's just kind of recalibrating my brain to say, okay, now this is a more or less a given pending
Yeah.
you hit it solid. Like, no, this is what you should do because of these new numbers and what you're capable of doing.
Yeah. You can take on things that you couldn't take on before. And so that way, I think it's more freeing. Like, yeah, again, there'd be other holes where, like, oh, well, now 290's kind of not out of the question. So,
Yeah.
but again, like those are good problems.
Yeah, listen, I love that. And I love people can hear that. Yeah, Mike Poro and 290 might be able to go hand in hand at some areas. And we're not talking downwind, downhill. And
No,
I
no,
think
this is 70 degrees, 0 feet
yeah,
elevation.
yeah, I love it. And I think that as we transitioned a little bit, into the fairway woods, I think not so much the wedges. The wedges we kind of said from the get-go, the SM11s were going to be it. It's a matter of just finding the right balance and the right grind. But I think the one interesting thing that kind of wrapped that whole fitting up for me was the fairway woods, because again, I played the GT2s Titleist, and at times, I'd be honest, it's not always the easiest club to carry in par fives. And I told you that if I didn't have 225 or less in, I really wasn't taking it on. And
Yeah.
when you and I were going through these fairway woods, speak a little bit about that part of the fitting.
Yeah. You were in, I think, a Tennessee Blue 55 stiff, which if we, it's a little more active towards the bottom. And not that just because, a shaft that resisted you wanting to shut the face worked in the irons doesn't necessarily mean it works on the driver. I'm sure going to start there on the driver shaft. So we pulled the whiteboard Diamana, which relative, it's, 63, 65 grams relative to other shafts in that weight, similar flex. Like, it's rather soft in the handle. And it's sort of just, again, it just didn't allow your face to close that soon. So we just I think it just better timed you. I think the Tennessee Blue, you kind of have to sit on it and babysit it in order to get that same 274. And that just gets complicated. And then once the whiteboard worked really well, which was the first shaft, I did sort of stick in other whiteboard shafts, but that's where we talked about, like, it used to feel harsher. So DMI to me feels very fluid. And my feel isn't your feel. And by the way, your feel is the only one that matters. Like, I'm not buying it. You're buying it, you know? So I would say most guys would say that a Tennessee white or a Ventus black feel a lot harsher. And you didn't really say harsh, but I think you said something similar, right?
Yeah, it was like a little tighter. It
Yeah, you
felt
said tighter.
tighter.
Yeah. And look, a shaft is a timing mechanism. Shafts don't launch balls, they don't spin balls. If you're buying a shaft because you want to lower your ball flight or raise it, like, Just stop right there. Go get fit.
Yeah. I mean,
Go
and
get
I
fit
think,
because you'll be shocked how many times a red board goes lower than a white board. I would say 30 to 40% of the time, which is way, way too high a percent for someone just to go off the cuff of, this is what, you know, this internet tool recommended for me.
yeah,
It's just not
yeah.
plug and play. And thank God it's not, otherwise I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the things when you're talking about the whole value of this whole thing is I'll get to down the road, but like the driver, I'm beyond ecstatic with the whole build out of it, from the shaft to the head. I just think it's gonna be it just makes things more exciting. It makes things just be like, all right, I'm able to do a little more and kind of be a little more freer, knowing that, like, hey, listen, I know what I'm capable of doing now. And now I got the right tool in my hand to go
Yeah.
do that.
And we put it a little upright because I think you kept on saying, like, even though when I had it neutral, like, you wanted the ball to not start that far right. You pointed to a spot on the screen, like, no, if it could just start one, there's lines on the fairway, but you wanted to get one line closer to the target line, you'd be better. So I picked the layup, and then you start hitting a little more left than you were, and then actually your club head speed started kicking up a little bit. You're from like 101 to 102, and when we start seeing ball or club head speed increases randomly, 50 shots in, I mean it's because you are grooving it. You're in a good spot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you just feed the guard and let him shoot.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, totally agree. And I think as we got into the fairway woods aspect of it,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where I thought things got really interesting because I've always been kind of like the forward guy that carries the 16.5 degree kind of 3-4 wood, maybe a light
Mm-hmm.
5 wood, because again, a lot of it is getting the ball up in the air. But I also had the conversation with you that, hey, listen, on par fives, if I don't have less than 225, I'm just not getting there. I can't get
Yeah,
there. I don't have it.
yeah.
Talk to us about the process of how we ended up kind of scrapping the 3 wood, scrapping the 4 wood, and just kind of diving right to the 5 wood and 7 wood.
So I guess before then, your angle attack is a little up, which would prefer not, but it is what it is. Like I got to work with your swing, not swing. In my in yeah, the swing you have is a swing I need to work with, and you're about 1.5 degrees up. So guys that tend to pick a fairway wood off the turf, generally speaking, because I do will not. It's oxymoronic to say I'll never commit to an absolute, but um, for guys that are a little more shallow and tend to pick the ball at the fairway wood, a shallower face tends to do better. Um, TaylorMade, not in the max lineup, but their regular core and their tour heads are a little deeper. I think Titleist is as deep as TaylorMade, maybe a little shallower, a little. Um, so once I saw what numbers you were delivering on your forward, I kind of had a feeling, and I think I said it, like, this is either Callaway or Ping. I don't know which, but those two are the shallowest that we have. Um, so I knew that it was gonna be a shallow face 3 wood. And then you end up hitting a 3 wood like 238, 237, which I was happy with because you're covering now. I'm looking at your numbers, 264. So I think I said something along the lines of like the winner's gonna be about 240 and it's gonna roll to 260. Because I don't want driver junior. I mean, there's sometimes when that's necessary and that's a mini driver. But that wasn't it for you. And so I want every club to have a unique reason to be in your bag. I don't want anyone stepping anyone's toes. I want good coverage as best I can through all your gaps. So I knew I needed about 240, and the Quantum 3 wood, with it being shallow, got us almost 240, and I was happy. I was actually pretty proud of that number, and I was content until we looked at the 5 wood, and for whatever reason, you hit the 5 wood, and I think your number is like 237, 238, and you hit the 5 wood like 231. So at that point, we got to ask, like, what's the point of having a 3 wood? Like the tie goes to the shorter club. Like, let's make this game simple. It's already complicated. I mean, you're playing on your day off or your summer break, you know.
Yeah.
um, So like the game's complicated enough. Um, I will always bias the easiest option, the shortest club, the most loft. All things being equal. So yeah, when you were giving up a handful of yards for a lot more control, now you actually could use it on a par five. You know, you're covering 231. I need to give you a chance of holding a green. You know, I'm not gonna. You can't commit to that 235, but like now 235, like it's
It's
you're gonna.
doable.
It's doable. It's
Yeah.
doable. You know, it's a conversation with you or Caddy or your app, whatever you use to consult on what club you pull. But 235 is in
Yeah.
play, and
Yeah.
it
It's no
wasn't an option
longer.
before.
Right. It was never an option. Now it's a big time conversation because when I'm hitting that 5 wood and I'm carrying it 231, a total distance of 247, like, all right, 235 carrying again is not out of the realm of possibilities. And
No, and you didn't. And it
frankly,
wasn't an option.
right. It wasn't even in play, like I told you, because even with the forward I was hitting, it was like, all right, 225 is the carry. And I think if we went back to my numbers, it was right in that ballpark. Like that's what I knew I could carry it.
226. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So like knowing that like I'm adding loft to what is going to be an easier club to hit and the numbers are just frankly better, it was kind of a no brainer to go to that 5 wood.
yeah, yeah. It was a no brainer. And at that point, I think we talked about like, well, or like the ramifications of dropping the 3 wood. Well, for you, it was like, well, now we got to have a 62, just for fun. Literally, just because why not?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
I mean, that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, but yeah, we went 7 wood, and you're covering 231. The 247. Let's not. Not saying let's not talk about 247, but you never know what the condition is of the day. You know, it's New Jersey is a swamp. I doubt you're ever going to get that 247, except on a very dry summer day. Um, but I can that 230, 235 number all day, all day.
yeah.
I'll stand on that one.
And it's just kind of the
Um,
same thing with the 7 wood. When we even dipped into the 7 wood, like being able to get that high up in the air at 205, like to me, I'm
yeah,
like, God, I normally was trying to grip a 5 iron and be like, you know what? All right, we got to absolutely nut this thing
yeah,
and hope it gets in the air.
yeah.
Otherwise, forget about it.
No, yeah, it's complicated golf, complicated, and now your 5 iron probably like a low 190s carry. I had the 4 iron in because you hit it high enough to where it's in play, but like, I mean, why not take the 7 wood? It has an angle descent of a 7 iron in some cases, like, just lands so soft.
Yeah.
Um, so like, long par threes, like, you're there.
Yeah. Which
And
is
you
an
don't
arch
have to.
nemesis.
Yeah, we just picked on two a few minutes ago. Two, if
Yeah.
it's playing to that 200-yard number, okay, well now, yeah. And if it's in that back top shelf behind the bunker, yeah, well now you can cover it with ease,
Yeah.
and you don't have to worry about really skipping past it.
No
Unless you
doubt.
turn it over, but those are different conversations.
Right. And then talk to me about the shafts that went in into each one of those.
Yeah, so I like for fairy woods to be at least 10 grams heavier, not at least 10 grams heavier, than whatever we found on the driver. So I was gonna be in the mid 70s in a similar flex. Um, you tested several. We end up in the blue board. For whatever reason, Diamano just like really worked for you today. Ventus did not. You know. Um, and at that point, what I'm looking for a gap. We don't need to really explore as much as we need to do on the irons and the driver. I'm looking for a functional ball flight in a number that makes sense in terms of carry distance. Um, and the carry distance needs to be, the how it got there also has to make sense. It can't skip in like you were. It's got to land with purpose. And so once I found that in the blue board, like I said, I got lazy on the 7 wood and just pulled 83 and stiff in the red board. But it was right next to it, and I was like, well, why not? And then it was as straight as it can be. And I think you put one within feet of the target line. So it's like, all right, well, that was that was just that was it.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a luck there. But even when you look at the numbers though, like in that 7 wood, 15 degrees of launch, I thought was like unreal. The spin was super high, and the idea that it hit a number really for me when I think about my personal golf game is like that 205 on a par three is always I mean, listen, I'm probably not the only one, but you get to those long par fives and you're kind of stuck. Am I gonna choke up on a hybrid or 5 wood, or am I gonna try to mash a 5 iron? And the way I know that my game is, that ball would typically ricochet over the green. I can tell you on so many of my videos, whether it was a 5 iron I launched over, whether it was a hybrid at Knickerbocker, the 17th hole, 205, I kind of hit the hybrid over the green. Like those are just things that now I feel like I have a weapon to kind of go
Yeah.
into these places and be like, I got the shot, I got the club now for it too.
Yeah.
You know,
Forgiveness in a way that benefits you.
yep, 100%. And I think the last part of it is the wedges, and you're talking about a full bag.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's kind of crazy is we've gone through driver, fairway woods, irons, and I haven't been able to put a Titleist in the bag, and that's all that was in the bag. But I think the wedges were kind of, I don't want to say a no-brainer because we tried others,
Yeah,
but
and
at
we looked at the Cleveland, we looked at the Ping. You just spun it a little better and it launched a little lower. So like win-win. More
yeah,
spin and you launched it. I said I wanted half the loft on the club in terms of the launch angle. And I think you hit some 56-degree wedges on that on the D grind, which actually surprised me. Like I would have expected the F grind to launch a little lower, but ball don't lie.
no, no, hey,
Um,
ain't that the truth?
and it launched around 26 frequently. Um, and I kind of put you on a number like, what's an awkward number for you? You said, oh, I like this at 105. I was like, well, the last thing you're gonna do is hit it at 105 in front of me because like why, like not layup lines, right? Uh, you know, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of awkward. And I think you said somewhere in like around 90s, weird spot. I put it 88, 90, whatever it was. Um, and so at 80, let's call it 85 yards for the sake of the conversation, we're looking for something above 8,500 spin. And the RTZ and the ping were a little under, right at 85, and the Vokey for you was like 85 to 92. And spin only gets, well, it gets a little better, then it gets a little worse, but spin drops as you play with it. The grooves aren't as sharp as they were day one.
Mm-hmm.
So we went with the 50F, or no, 48. I'm going to weaken to 49, and then the 54D. And I like for the lob wedge to be played at a lower bounce than the sand wedge. You're using that around the green, tight greens, or not greens, fairways around the green. And you need help. Everyone needs help getting the ball, the leading edge under the ball on those shots. So I always go less bounce in the lob wedge and I do the sand wedge. Um, and then so that was 54, 58 there in the D and the M grind. And then we're going to go with the 62. Now, this year, and I don't know if Titleist isn't going to have a 62, but you're going to get an SM10 from last season because they still had the SM10 and we still had a couple in Scottsdale. So, and that's just going to be a funky little club just for why not? Because the 5 wood outpunched, it outkicked its coverage.
Yeah, 100%. And for a guy like me that typically always uses a 60 degree out of the bunker, a recommendation from you would be what? Would you say you're going 58 out of the bunker now? Or would you say, hey, listen, you got the 62 in the bag, you might as well use it?
I mean, I would say, well, why commit to only playing one club out of the bunker? Why wouldn't you
That's
let
it.
why wouldn't you let like the environment tell you? You know, what do you do when like do you hit from 50 yards, 40 a long bunker shot? Are you really trying to muscle up a 60?
No, never. I'm talking more green side bunker.
Oh,
Like,
green
yeah,
side.
I'm talking more green side. I apologize.
Oh, like green side. I mean, it depends. Like if the pin's up close, well, yeah, like take as much loft as gets the job done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I wish there was a better answer, but like you don't, you, like the environment dictates to you what shaft or not shaft, sorry, what club you pull, not the other way around. You know, around
Mm-hmm.
the green, I don't think we talked about this, and I do my wedge fits outside almost exclusively. I mean, not, but except for winter times. And we go to the fescue, and actually, what you would find, and it's can't simulate it indoors. But what would you hit in thick fescue right now? Maybe a few paces off the green.
I think I
And
would just hit a
let's say you're
60.
25, 30 yards.
I probably just hit the 60 degree.
Would you say, and that's an M grind if I remember correctly?
You
Was an
put me
M
on the
grind?
spot. Yeah, I think it was.
Okay. Did you ever feel like your like the wedge just slipped under you, slipped under the ball?
Yeah, sometimes it would be like maybe even sometimes high on the face.
Yeah, where you see like a ball mark,
Yeah,
like almost
yeah,
like how did the club even hit that?
yeah,
And then you have no control because there's no spin because the ball couldn't grab any grooves. And I actually think most guys would do best if they took more bounce. Everyone is athletic enough. You're opening the face so much in that situation where like you can, you know, I think getting bounce that brings the strike location down where you feel more ball on the face. Weird, but whatever. You know,
yeah. No, I got it.
you would feel better contact playing more bounce in most situations.
Yeah.
So I would say
Listen.
if you're in thick fescue, like don't be afraid to grab a sand wedge. I mean, unless it's like close.
Hmm.
But if you're close, like, and you're really short side, you kind of have to bail out anyway. So just take your medicine.
Yeah.
But I would actually love for you to tell me in April, like, what club performs best around the green in thick rough. Because I bet
Yeah.
you it's a sand wedge. And you probably never thought about using a sand wedge inside 40
Yeah.
yards.
No, listen, I'll be dead honest with you. I hope I'm not in thick rough come April
Oh,
because I'm
no,
hitting
it's
a
going
lot
to
of,
happen. It's going to happen.
yeah, I'm hoping I'm just hitting fairways and greens with these new clubs.
Yeah.
But when I will send you the video of next time I'm in that thick stuff for you to kind of dissect it yourself. But I think that's the entire process, from the beginning to the end is, it was an eye-opening experience, especially for someone like me that kind of felt like I knew the ins and outs of it, but frankly, I didn't. And I think that's one of the things. I don't care if you're the best golfer in the world or just beginning. I think one of the things that you and I spoke at length about as to why someone should get fit is really important because you can go to many other spots, and I'm not going to name names and throw shade on certain spots, but I think the difference when it comes to places like yours or you specifically is if I'm able and I want to do something right, rather than do it multiple times in a 5, 6, 7, 8 year period, why not just do it the first time, the right time,
Yeah.
with the understanding, hey, listen, it may cost me a little more, but I'm not going to have to go
Yeah.
back here. Talk to
No,
us
like, I
about
mean,
that.
yeah. Like, measure twice, cut once. You know, if you bought your clubs, even in 2023, you had the 2019 T200s. I bet you would get similar results in the same shaft in a newer T200. You would be in the same exact spot, paying whatever you paid then. You would have to do it all over again. And yeah, are we expensive? Yes. Like, but you would have paid far more doing it twice. And we also guarantee the results we produce, when we build your stuff. So there's a built-in insurance policy to what we do. If I do my job right on your irons, unless you change your swing and you go from 87 miles an hour to 95 miles an hour, and now everything's different, there's no reason for me to see you again for at least 4 or 5 seasons. But in the event that you do gain 10 miles an hour, you will crawl over glass, to come find me. You're like, look, I'm now hitting it way different. Like, look at this. And yeah, by all means. Same thing on the driver. I would say drivers, like, a reasonable expectation is for a model to improve about 2-ish yards year over year. So if every has $600-ish, and it's not going to get cheaper next year, and shafts on our wall, from 425 to like 300. You need to have $1,000 problem for $1,000 solution to make sense. So this club should work for you and hold on its own, barring a swing change from you, at least 3 or 4 seasons. You know, so yeah,
Yeah.
is it an expensive setup? Yes, but like, what head did you have before the GT2?
The TSR,
R2. All right, and before then,
the TS.
okay, so you went in in 4 releases, you bought 3 of them.
I know I'm a little
You,
nuts.
you
I'm a little
skipped,
nuts.
yeah. Well, I need you guys, so keep it on. But like, got bills to pay. No,
Yeah,
but like, in TS, TSI, TSR, GT,
but think about it real quick,
you
Mike.
you
Real
bought
think about this. Yeah, think
3
about this. I bought 3 brand new drivers, right?
in
In
four
the last
releases.
3 out of 4 releases, right? Whereas if I did it right the first time, it maybe happened 5 years ago,
Yeah, your
and then it happened
TS well
now.
fit should have been beat right now, to the
Exactly
point where
right.
like, all right, now it's worth moving.
I know. See?
So
And I think
that's
that's the point that needs to get driven home to the audience out here listening is like you can go do it every year like the maniac I am, but it doesn't make financial sense to do that. You might as
yeah,
well do it right the first time, enjoy it for 3, 4, 5 seasons, and then after that third or fourth, fifth season, now you can go back and make that same investment knowing
yeah,
that
and
it's going to carry
I
out.
I think something that's helpful for guys, and this is pending you having like not you personally, but having access to a track van, whether it's in the winter or a quad. I want 2.7 yards for every mile an hour you give me, as a rule of thumb. So, like, for example, the guy I had after you, I didn't love his setup, but you're swinging at 110 miles an hour and he hit at 293. And 110 times 2.7 is 297. I literally got my calculator out and I was like, you're getting like 98+% of what you could expect. So, like, and then I just told him, like, hey, like, every head 600-ish bucks, every shaft's like, do you have $1,000 problem? Because in my opinion, you don't, but I'm also like, don't twist my arm to sell a driver. But
Yeah.
I will just call balls and strikes as they are.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think that's another thing I think the audience should understand and appreciate is that you're as much as it is a business for you and you're trying to sell them things, you're also going to be brutally honest to that
yeah.
point right there. Is like, hey,
No,
listen,
this world is too small. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, especially like this pocket of Jersey,
mm-hmm.
where yeah, it's just too small for me to start just pushing metal for the sake of it.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
get it, I get it. Listen,
and
I'll
the
say,
driver you don't sells 4 others.
yeah. Listen, I'll say this: I had an unbelievable experience. I had an unbelievable time, and I felt like I learned so much in the time that I was with you. Um, I do have something here at the end in terms of a kind of a fun rapid fire final 5 questions. I'm looking for 1 word answers from you. Whatever
All right.
comes to the top of your tongue, I want you to spit it out. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah,
All right, so here we go. What's the biggest club fitting myth?
yeah. Oh shit. One word answer. Shafts. Okay, no, I can't give 1 word. It's too complicated of a job to give 1 word, but in one concise answer, biggest myth is thinking that because a shaft says it's high launch, high spin, it will do that. Or conversely, the other way, low launch, low spin.
Got it.
Moreover, what is mid mid? Like, what kind of answer is mid mid from a spread PDF? Like, what is that answer? That's a non-answer. Mid mid.
Yeah.
What is that?
If it's nothing to you, it means nothing to me.
I mean,
Number
it's shaft is a timing mechanism and nothing more.
There you go. Number 2, favorite golf course in New Jersey.
I mean, I'm gonna say Conk bias, but
What's
not okay.
Yeah, you can Petita works. I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't if anybody argues with that, they're kind of crazy. What gets you excited to come to work and fit golfers every day?
It's new. Every day is a new day. it's redundant and monotonous in terms of like drivers fits, iron fits, full bag. It's like the process is redundant, but we're solving a puzzle that we don't know what it's supposed to. We don't have like the cover of the box to work off of. I don't know where the four corners are, but we're working on a puzzle together. And at the end of the hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, we should come up with a much clearer picture of better golf. And so in that way, every day is legitimately different.
There you go. Describe True Spec Golf in 1 to 3 words.
Agnostic.
Oh, that's a great word there. And then what separates a good club fitter from a great one?
Being humble, not being dogmatic, and willing to challenge yourself in terms of like challenging your beliefs. If you think the same thing for 4 release cycles, and are you challenging yourself? I don't. Even if you're right, I still want to like. If someone has a better answer, please, like, you
Let's
know,
hear it.
I,
Let's
I
hear
want
it.
to. I want to compete with the marketplace. Like, I'm open to it, not from a egotistic point of view, but like, I want to get better.
Oh,
So I think when guys get dogmatic, they get in trouble.
there you go. Now, listen, I want you to kind of plug where people can come find you if they're looking to get fitted, whether for a new wedge, a new irons, new driver.
Yeah,
Plug where
yeah.
you're at, where they can find you.
Yeah, you can go on our website, truespecgolf.com. I'm the only guy that works at Matita Conk. So my schedule's there. We should be hitting outside some point between March 13th and April 1. I don't have an exact date yet because it's kind of weather dependent. But if you want like to be fit outside, or not fit outside, but you'll be inside, but your ball, see your real ball flight, somewhere in that window, we'll make a post on Instagram when we go out. But that's where they could find me.
There you go. Listen, Mike, I can't thank you enough. I had an unbelievable day at Matita Conk, learning so much, so much, so much. And I appreciate you hopping on here to kind of break it all down for the audience.
There you go.
All right, pal. Have a great day. Appreciate everything. We'll talk soon. If you're serious about playing better golf this season, it starts with getting your body right in the off season. That's where All Square Performance Chiropractic and Golf comes in. Led by Dr. Andrew Spear, who has over 10 years of experience and is a certified medical level 3 professional with the Titleist Performance Institute, All Square focuses on helping golfers feel better, move better, and ultimately play better. TPI research shows that physical limitations directly affect your golf swing, and Dr. Spear specializes in identifying exactly what your body needs, not a one-size-fits-all fix. Their Livingston facility is fully equipped with state-of-the-art chiropractic and fitness equipment, plus a TrackMan 4 simulator with swing catalyst pressure plates and slow motion cameras. Right now, Drop Pod listeners can take advantage of a complimentary TPI consultation, plus a special offer of 1 free month of indoor golf simulator rentals. Visit allsquarepcg.com or call 908-998-9194 or follow All Square PCG on Instagram. All Square Performance Chiropractic and Golf, helping you build a better swing from the ground up.